Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we are revisiting the abhorrent Oculus archetype, which had fallen off, but now with Lorwyn Eclipsed has picked up some nice new tools. So our main build around is still abhorrent Oculus, a 3 mana 5/5, has flying, and says at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep we get to manifest dread. So look at the top 2 cards of our library, put one of them on the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature, the other goes into our graveyard, and we can turn that face down creature face up if we pay its mana cost. So the Oculus is very powerful, but there is a caveat. As an additional cost to cast it, we have to exile 6 cards from our graveyard. So we're usually not going to cast the Oculus for 3 mana. Instead, we want to get it into our graveyard by either milling it or maybe discarding it. And then we've got 2 ways to bring it back. There's Helping Hand, which returns a creature with mana value 3 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And then we also picked up Emptiness in Lorwyn Eclipsed, which we can evoke for double white, in which case we can return a creature with mana value 3 or less from our graveyard to the battlefield, and it will be untapped this time. Emptiness can also be evoked for double black, in which case we can use it as removal, putting 3 -1 counters on up to 1 target creature. If we manage to hardcast it for 6 mana, then we get both modes, although we're usually going to be evoking it, since our deck operates on a pretty low land count. And then there's actually a third method to get an Oculus on the battlefield, and that's using the Likeness Looter, a 1/1 shapeshifter with flying, can tap it to draw and then discard, so kind of your classic looter, but it also has an additional ability. If we pay X mana, this creature becomes a copy of target creature card in our graveyard with mana value X, except it also has flying and this ability. So the looter can pay 3 mana to turn into an Oculus if we had one in the graveyard, which is still a pretty good deal. And then a huge new addition in Lorwyn Eclipsed is the Moonshadow, a 1 mana 7/7 elemental with menace. Although it does have a slight drawback, it enters with 6 -1/-1 counters on it, and then whenever 1 or more permanent cards are put into our graveyard from anywhere, we get to remove a -1/-1 counter, so it can slowly grow into a sizable threat over time. Got a few mill effects, a few ways to discard. Manifest Dread can also potentially enable Moonshadow, or we can skip the whole -1 counter thing if we have a Likeness Looter and a Moonshadow in the graveyard. Now we just pay 1 mana to turn a Likeness Looter into a 7/7 Flying Menace, which is a pretty good deal, so that gives the deck a second primary win condition to help close out the game, and the Looter already had great synergy with the abhorrent Oculus. And then besides Oculus, we also have 2 copies of the Benevolent River Spirit from Avatar, a 4/5 flyer with ward 2. When it enters, we get to scry 2, and if we were to cast it normally, we would have to waterbend 5, so that's not happening very often. So once again, the goal is to discard it and then bring it back, or turn the Likeness Looter into a 4/5 flyer, which is still a pretty good deal. And then rounding out the deck, we have some cheap removal, picked up Requiting Hex. Can also maybe combo with -1 counters from Moonshadow and then get rid of them later. And then at 2 mana, there's Bitter Triumph, which can destroy a creature or planeswalker at instant speed. And as an additional cost, we have to either discard a card or pay 3 life, so we can turn that into an advantage if we can discard an Oculus or River Spirit that way to set up our graveyard. And then we've got a few more ways to get rid of an Oculus if it's stuck in our hand. The Iron Shield Elf, a 3/1, can discard a card to become indestructible until end of turn. Also have to tap it, so it can also be a solid threat against control decks that don't have a way to exile it. And then the Winter Night Stories for 3 mana lets us draw 3 and then discard 2 unless we discard a creature card. So also perfect for discarding an Oculus. And we can also pretty easily harmonize this for just a single blue mana by tapping an Oculus, maybe on the same turn where we brought it back with Emptiness. And then we get to do the same and get more value out of our graveyard. And then Overlord of the Baelmurk is another way to fill the graveyard, maybe mill an Oculus and get some of our key creatures back out of the graveyard, and can also maybe get back an Emptiness, so that's a way for us to access our reanimation effect out of the graveyard in creature form, whereas we would not be able to before. And then at the mana base is where things get a little bit painful, since I'm running all 12 shock lands in the Esper colors, and then we also have 2 copies of Starting Town, which can also deal us a bunch of damage. The reason we have so many painful lands is because we want to be able to play untapped lands on turn 1 to be able to cast Requiting Hex and Moonshadow. We also need double white early to evoke Emptiness to get back creatures from the graveyard, so that doesn't leave a ton of options. So yeah, hopefully we don't get hit by Demolition Field, since I'm not running any basic lands, and yeah, hopefully things will work out. But for now, let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play. We have The payoffs in hand, ways to get them back, but no way to discard them at the moment. So this one's not amazing. If we draw a discard outlet, it could be okay. But yeah, as is, I don't think I can keep... Alright, this time we have a Looter and an Overlord. Can keep the River Spirit to turn Looter into a 4/5, but I think we do have some more powerful options. So don't need to prioritize it. And then we'll see here. Tapped Watery Grave from our opponents. Could get the Overlord going. Mill the Looter, which we'll grab. Play that next turn. Opponent Sultai, so likely the Reanimator deck. The seat for double black to have a look. Probably takes Helping Hand. Yep. Alright, Oculus, we're not too far from casting. So we need to exile 6 cards from our graveyard. And then Oculus could be a great way to fill the graveyard in case the opponent goes for their Bringer of the Last Gift. And draw another Oculus. Can also use a Looter, discard Oculus, and then turn into it. So those are all possibilities. Yeah, for now let's draw discard. And then... yeah, I guess I'll do that now. We'll get to immediately Manifest Dread. And then Moonshadow's perfect. So I can make a 7/7 here. That's also why we needed to keep a black mana. Formidable Speaker can get Kevero, or maybe a Bringer. Discards Terror. They're still deciding, so they don't have a clear plan in mind yet. Gets Kevero. Can also turn into our own Oculus, of course. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with my Moonshadow. And we could cast another Oculus. Start by attacking. Opponent takes 12. And we'll play another one. Manifest twice. And this time grab the elf, I think. Even their opponent can cast Kevero, exile Emptiness, and then if they cast it for double black, they still get the 3/1 counters. But yeah, Oculus gets it done. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have Moonshadow. No Looter to copy it. But we have removal and some discard outlets. So I think there's still enough potential. As always, try and find an Oculus. Currently don't have a way to bring it back either. So as far as keepable hands go, this one's not particularly exciting. Terramorphic Expanse, so probably a landfall deck. So can expect some creatures. Could have potentially discarded something to the elf just to grow the Moonshadow, but for now I'll keep my lanes. It's gonna be a Llanowar Elves. Okay. Emptiness means we now just want to find an Oculus. Could also use Emptiness to take out the elf, but we don't have double black for that right now. So I'll let them keep the elves, keep Bitter Triumph in hand. Perfect, discard Oculus. And then next turn we have a couple ways to bring it back. upside of using Emptiness is that the creature's untapped. So we can maybe also harmonize Winter Night Stories. Mossborn Hydra, that's the must answer. They might have a green mana for Snakeskin Veil to protect it. Then I could still take it out if we both use Emptiness and then respond with Bitter Triumph at instant speed. Opponent has a fetch land instead. So they can grow the Hydra. It is now out of range from Emptiness, but just means we'll have to use Bitter Triumph. Do not want to let that thing untap if I can help it. Okay, now I guess we'll go for Emptiness since it's a bit more mana efficient, even though I'm not harmonizing Winter Night Stories. Could matter on future turns. This also grows Moonshadow some more. And I can pay 3 life, I think. Hit you for 6, and next turn we're looking at lethal damage. And yeah, Moonshadow's perfect here. Although the Spirit would have been great too. That one's maybe a little bit better to bring back with Helping Hand. Have a 4/5 flyer and a 1 mana 7/7 menace. So our opponent needs something very special. Probably something that's not in their deck. A Rage for 3. Can even make it indestructible. And yeah, our opponent has seen enough without even seeing our face down cards. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. This hand has potential. Turn 1 Moonshadow, turn 2 Looter. Can help discard Moonshadow and turn into a 7/7 flyer, while also maybe growing the first one. And then Overlord in the meantime can also grow Moonshadow, but is hoping to mill Oculus that we can Helping Hand back. So I've got a couple different angles of attack. Mountain points towards aggro. We already take 4 damage of our own lands here, so could be sketchy. But pretty happy to see Shock on Moonshadow. So does that mean I go double Moonshadow now instead of Looter? Because if I play Looter, it's for sure getting removed. Yeah, I guess double Moonshadow it is. Already have one in the graveyard. So I can maybe wait with 3 mana to play Looter and make it a 7/7 before the opponent gets a chance to take it out. Now Hard Claw. And another Burst Lightning. The White Splash can be for Boros Charm. Could also be for the Sheltered by Ghost, which would be the concern here. But still gonna go for it. Maybe a reason to hang back with Moonshadow for a turn, so I can at least block the Hard Claw. Just a Challenger. And another Claw. Alright, so could Helping Hand back a Moonshadow and then grow it with Overlord. Higher upside, of course, is milling one of our payoffs and bring those back. So I'll start here, making sure to leave black mana available. Alright, so we can get back a Moonshadow and then cast it. And then could even look at harmonizing Winter Night Stories. I think I'm just gonna attack for 7, leave a 3/3 back. Hope they can burn it. Play this tapped, save myself some damage. And then next turn we can look into harmonizing. Needlehead's fine. So let's see here. Don't necessarily want to draw anymore now that there's a Needlehead in play. Helping Hand on Moonshadow doesn't do a whole lot. Can cast Looter and turn that into another 7/7. And then the question is whether or not to attack. But yeah, opponent's gonna throw in the towel, one too many Moonshadows for them to deal with. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand is decent. Got early removal. Don't think I want to shock myself to keep up Hex, but it is a possibility. Would have worked out. Now play a Looter, and then next turn could potentially already make an Oculus by discarding it and paying 3. But it's possible we need to do some damage control. So ban to ramp with a Badger Mole. Yeah, I think we need to contain these threats for now. So I can Hex. Take out Badger Mole. And Bitter Triumph, discard Oculus. The alternative is keeping Bitter Triumph to maybe answer something like a Ouroboros. But next turn we can start attacking with an Oculus. Leyline Weaver does have reach. And another Oculus. Okay, so pay 3 mana, make an Oculus. I'll just play this tapped, even though I could manifest a Moonshadow. Winter Night Stories we want in the graveyard. So we're close to casting another Oculus. Mockingbird for 2, yeah, opponent can just copy the Oculus without having to do any setup. And that's quite powerful. So now we each have one, but maybe our manifests are going to be a little bit more powerful. I guess I'll just harmonize here and see what we can find. Alright, drew all 4 copies of Oculus, I'll discard another. And then I can Bitter Triumph the Mockingbird. Discarding Winter Nights. And cast another Looter, which can maybe set up 2 more copies of Oculus next turn. 3 to hardcast, 3 to copy 1. And then no attacks, I don't think. Select the Looter. So that's essentially 5 mana for another Oculus. We've got more eyeballs than we know what to do with. Surprise, surprise, it was a Badger Mole all along, and the Explosive Prodigy, that was unexpected. So this is still maybe a 5-color Leyline deck after all. So it deals with a Looter. And a River Regent will draw discard, untapping Weaver. And another Badger Mole. Alright, that's scary now. Prodigy can also just be a one-off to get with Rhythm of the Wild. Okay. So plan now, just cast Oculus, maybe harmonize a Winter Night Stories, see if we can find some removal. Exiling stuff we don't care about. Found a Helping Hand. Discard the Elf. And then I can cast Moonshadow. Helping Hand back another Oculus. And attack for 5. Face downs can get in there too. And we'll get 3 more manifests. But yeah, could be that to a Craterhoof if they have it. Yep, they sure do. Alright, GG's. Got pretty close, opponent at 4 life. Just needed a few more removal spells to contain the badger moles. Opponent wants to cast more spells. If they had an Ouroboros, they should have cast it before playing Craterhoof. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Hand is functional. Moonshadow into maybe another Moonshadow, and then Overlord setting up Helping Hand. Facing Temple of Triumph, so presumably Jeskai control. Just red-white for now. And Seam Rip, pretty nice answer. Oh, we drew another one. And double Moonshadow it is. Opponent is playing blue, not too surprising. Well, if they counter the Overlord, I'll be pretty sad. They're resolved. And we have 2 options. I like the Looter here. And then we can Helping Hand back the Benevolent River Spirit. Should I go for it now? Let's start by attacking, because possible our opponents got a Day of Judgment. I guess I do have a second Helping Hand. Alright, fine. Scry 2, don't need the Hex. Flood Farm doesn't make blue mana. So that was a good scry. But yeah, Day of Judgment was always incoming. Draw another Hex, that's awkward. So try this again. If we find blue mana, we can play Looter, immediately make it a 7/7. This is more white mana. This is another uncastable spell. Need to find a shock land. Demolition Field is very deadly against us since we do not have any basics. Opponent doesn't know that. Surprised they have room for it in a 3-color control deck. Alright, I'll play the Bleach Bone, hope they don't destroy the Flood Farm. Consult without kicker, opponent doesn't have double blue themselves. So that makes it more likely that they'll use a Demolition Field now. Nope, opponent's being patient. Maybe from their perspective they think they'll fix my mana by letting me get a basic. Can't do much here. Opponent's got the mana for Jeskai Revelation now. And we've got the mana to play a Looter. They still can pay the ward in addition to casting the Revelation at least. Yep, so they're bouncing the Overlord. Okay. So, can just cast the Overlord for 5. Although then there's a risk I just die to these Monk tokens. Could still make the Looter plus Moonshadow play. Yeah, definitely have a few possibilities. I think I do want to make a 7/7 flyer. And then maybe just pass. So we have answers to the Monk tokens if they get too aggressive. But also not overextend into a board wipe. Opponent drawing and discarding with the Regents. I mean, they need to find an answer to this Moonshadow. They could have, I guess, also just cast the dragon to bounce it. But wow, opponent scoops it up, I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have a promising hand. Turn 1 removal, turn 2 looter, discard Oculus, bring it back. I think I still play tapped here, but it's always an interesting choice, not knowing what the opponent is playing. Alright, they have a nuisance, so it could be blue-black. Still try looter. The looter also a fairy. And a bat's gonna have a look. Probably takes the hex. If they take Oculus, I wouldn't be able to discard it and potentially bring it back. But yeah, the hex can just get whatever our opponent steals back. Alright. Nuisance can hit for 1. Alright, find another hex, can only cast 1 at the moment. So I guess we start by looting, or I can take out the bat to make sure Oculus ends up in the graveyard. And then if I draw a white source, we could still emptiness it back. Alright, helping hand also works. And then Winter Night Stories we actively want in the graveyard. So our opponent needs to deal with Oculus, and they don't have an answer, and that'll do it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Hand has a looter plus a Moonshadow, so we can maybe discard the Moonshadow, turn looter into a 7/7. Alternatively, we can also cast the Moonshadow on turn 1. Our opponent on the Lesson deck. So they're pretty likely to take out the Moonshadow. Yeah, I'll run it out here. And then Bitter Triumph wants to take out Grain since they don't have many other targets. Opponent discards a Lesson. The looter's also unlikely to survive. Opponent uses Firebending Lesson. And has a talent, so some versions have started cutting the Stormchaser's talent. This turn, Bitter Triumph, paying 3 life. There's nothing I actively want to discard. I'm gonna stop Grain. But yeah, we're losing a lot of life to our own mana base as well. Opponent's got the Monuments. And a Benevolent River Spirit. So I can now play the looter, immediately make it a 7/7. So they can't burn it out as easily. Another Monument. But no way to enable it. And Helping Hands currently just looking at a Moonshadow. But I can maybe get lucky and mill a Oculus and then bring it back. And yeah, that's perfect. We milled an Oculus and another Moonshadow, so I can play Moonshadow, Helping Hand back Oculus. Now I am at 8, so Monuments can potentially deal 6 and then another 6, and I'm dead. So just need to get the game over with. Choose a Spirit, so that's another 4-powered flyer potentially. Abandon Attachments is 6 damage. So if they draw another one, we're dead. Opponent goes for 3 damage plus a treasure. Maybe they have an Artist Talent plus a 1-drop. Did they just have another Abandon? Wow. Yeah, that's game over. They drew triple abandoned attachments in the end. So we both drew pretty well. GG's. Yeah, those shock lands can get you on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. We have a discard outlet, 2 discard outlets in fact. No Oculus yet, 2 ways to maybe bring it back. This one's a bit speculative. If Oculus is in the top, let's say 4 cards, this hand could work out. If not, it might be a little bit lackluster. Don't have any removal. I'll mulligan. This is much better. So we have discard outlets, another discard outlet, Oculus, way to bring it back. So a 3rd land is not really necessary. Looter can also turn into an extra threat. And just play tap land. Black-red goblins, maybe? At the beginning of their end step, if they descended. Alright, I think I'll just keep a Bitter Triumph here. Or do I try Looter anyways? Yeah, if they destroy the Looter, that would be pretty bad. The upside of playing it is that I have 2 copies of Oculus. I can maybe bring them back on back-to-back turns. And it's not like the Goblin deck has a ton of removal here. They didn't have a Firebrand on turn 1. So maybe the upside is high enough. Opponent has the Mischief. Pretty good. But now we get to discard Oculus. Helping Hand it back. And still have Bitter Triumph with another Oculus available. Grab a Moonshadow, that's a 7/7. And a Taster of Wares is going to have a look. So that can exile our stuff, including instants that they then get to cast. So I probably want to get rid of the Bitter Triumph. Discarding Oculus. And then I still have a redundant way to bring it back, so it doesn't matter what they take. And then I will take 3 damage, I guess. You have to be a little careful, because the damage can add up over time. Now I can also pay 3 mana to turn Looter into the Oculus without bringing it back yet. But I prefer Moonshadow plus Oculus here. So make sure we have double whites. Bring back Oculus. Make a 7/7 menace. Opponent can double block it if they want. Which they do. But yeah, if I single attack without flipping it, then our opponent could have just traded for the Death Toucher. So this seemed better. Just have to be careful that I don't get burnt out by this Mischief. Another Lava Tongue. I may as well loot. I think I prefer the Bitter Triumph. Now Looter can turn into Moonshadow, and I even drew another Oculus, wow. Options aplenty once again. But if I make this a 7/7 and clear path, is their opponent dead or do they fall to 1? Because they do get to gain a life. I would have 17 in the air plus 2 on the ground, so I think that's Xaxes. Unless they're sitting on a requiting hex or something. Yeah, I don't think I'll need this Oculus, I'll save myself the damage. Not dead after all. Does it come back tapped or untapped? Tapped. Alright. Should be Xaxes then. Alright, and that'll do it. Awesome. So we got to see this updated version of the Oculus deck in action. Used to be a Jeskai Oculus for a while, so we swapped the red for black, giving us some more discard outlets, some more removal, and of course a pretty important new threat in Moonshadow, giving the deck a secondary win condition outside of Abhorrent Oculus, because the deck sometimes relies a little bit too much on drawing Oculus and getting it back out of the graveyard. So now at least with Moonshadow, especially combined with Likeness Looter, we've got a second threat that can help close out games, which is pretty important, so we don't always have to over-rely on Abhorrent Oculus to do the heavy lifting for us. But of course it's still our preferred win condition, also has excellent synergy with the Moonshadow, helping grow it, as well as being able to flip it face up as a 1-mana 7/7, so there's a ton of great synergy throughout. Now the deck does have some glaring weaknesses. It does rely pretty heavily on the graveyard, and with the popularity of the Sultai Reanimator decks, there's more and more main deck graveyard hate seeing play in best of 1, which is also going to affect the Oculus decks. And then the deck is also pretty weak to control decks, especially ones with a lot of board wipes. Since we do not have any discard spells or counter spells, we might draw some of our dead removal spells as well. So then a deck that can cast a few board wipes over and over can also pretty easily take over the game, but that's something that could be addressed after sideboard if we were playing best of 3 by bringing in some counter spells and maybe some targeted discard effects like Duress to take those cards away. But for now it seems like a playable deck in the best of 1 ladder, but not necessarily the most powerful graveyard deck you could be playing, so of course it's tempting to just go with a Sultai Reanimator deck instead, which kind of goes over the top of this deck as well. If we were to play the mirror match, I think the Sultai deck is going to win more often than not, but of course we did manage to sneak in a win in today's video, so that was nice. But yeah, for now I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.